give a fuck? Why do I give a fuck? Why do I try so hard? Why do I care so much?
Welcome to Why Do I Give a Fuck? A cross-cultural conversation between myself, Diane Tate,
and Johanna Thompson. In these times of great struggle and possible shift, we ask ourselves,
why do we give a fuck about any of it? How does the lens we see the world through impact what we see?
And what do we do about it?
And what do we do about it?
What do we do about it?
The drama.
I know.
So you want to know what I've learned about myself? Well, something that I've known, but I'm an extremely curious person. But what I appreciate in our last episode that we talked about was you observing that I engage a lot of people. And that's because I'm generally interested in people these days, because I do think that we are getting so separated from our humanity that I'm curious about people and I want to engage them. And I also, in hearing you say, oh, I was engaging a lot of people in South Carolina, again, I was having a very shadow existence experience. So I engage people. I do engage people. I'm not going to act like it was more in South Carolina than I typically am. But I also was in curiosity of how people would be in responsiveness to me, because it was clear that I was an anomaly in the space, not because of the way people were acting towards me in any way. Like I said, everybody was polite and lovely, but it was more like recognizing that I am an anomaly, recognizing there's not very many people like me. There's definitely not a lot of people unless they're in a specific area. And so like I know when we were going down the street and we were walking past the Daughters of the Revolution, the DAR building. And I was like, oh, I would be curious to go inside there, because I am so shocked at the possibility of how people could or would engage me without knowing me, just from seeing the way that I present and seeing my existence. Yeah. And so what I've learned in our conversations is that I really do like to be curious and challenge the assumptions that we come up with. This is not an aha moment from our conversation, but it's just more of an opportunity to gain some personal completion, because I'm able to explore that in a lot of different ways with you. I'm able to explore when you say something that I'll be like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I love that. Like there's something that feeds my soul of hearing something I haven't thought of and really having an understanding about what that is. Besides that, it also is an affirmation of, I don't know how many non-white identified humans would take the time to engage this conversation. And I'm curious about non-white identified human beings that actually do listen to this podcast. How many of us out there would actually take the time to engage these conversations? And what I find about myself is that I'm actually enjoying them. Like there is labor in these conversations, because you're taking time, you're thinking about how you're responding, and then you're also having new perspectives introduced to you. So it takes a moment to like internalize them and then think about the ways that you want to respond to them in a stream of consciousness, like right in the moment, like something happens and I will go, oh, okay, well, I'm curious about that, Diane. Like, what are we talking about? And so in that, I love the opportunity to explore that in the way. And I'm seeing that about myself. Like this is the time where I'm like, all right, we're going to really talk about some of the things that I don't have an opportunity with other people to talk about. And I know that I enjoy that. So those are some of the things I learned about myself. I learned that I love the bike rider you. So whisper it out. I
want to feel that picture of that other bike. I know. I need to find that and get that to you.
Yeah, there's a biker chick, y'all.
Yeah.
So those who don't know, you can tell the story about the past. So I'm just outing you to the world right now. And Diane is definitely like a Harley riding biker chicks knows how to trick it out, knows how to get up hills. I heard some wonderful storytelling that I would not have imagined from Diane. And there's a whole iteration of life of also being a Harley riding biker chick.
Yeah, I was a biker chick. Yeah, for maybe
Who
about
lived in
10
South
years
Carolina,
ago.
y'all.
Huh?
A biker chick who lived in South Carolina. So like if I'm just being like my authentic Black woman self, thinking of a blonde, cute, straps wearing Harley Davidson biker chick that you see on the movie, that is never a human being that I would have ever engaged in my life, because I really would have probably thought that you was like a Southern redneck racist. The truth, that is the narrative.
Yeah.
But that is not it at all. There was another time that we had a conversation when we were on this trip where we were talking about your wedding ring, and this it's blinged. It's blinged out, and it's wonderfully blinged out. And like, there was a point in time somebody stole my wedding ring, but I had a big, beautiful rock too. But you wearing the rock and then the responsiveness of that saying something about you. And my response to that is that saying something about you in regards to wealth in particular. So let's just name it what it is. My point was, I think that it's more important for people who have wealth to model how you are with your wealth. Like recognizing and understanding how you came into your wealth, the harm, and then identifying ways to mitigate and transform that harm from the past with a form of reparations in the way that you exist in the world, in a very real way. And so, yeah, I was like, if we have more people who do come from wealth, and we'll talk about how that also came up as we were going into our circle, and I thought that was a funny moment as well. But
yeah.
And how you engage that, how you recognize that you can pass the wealth that you had, that you came into, or that your family might have come into off of other people's time, energy, off of the backs of Black folks. We have an example directly of that. And in this moment, how you are walking through the world with that knowledge, with that understanding, with the wokeness that you have, and with the level of consideration. And so that's me being able to be reflective of, this is the type of model and relationship that I hope other people with wealth, however that wealth has been generated in your life, that you can see there's a way to exist where you are, regardless of your financial positioning, where you're really respecting and honoring people where they're at. And I think that that's a really good model. So I'm gonna offer that to you. There you go. Little sprinkles.
Thank you.
Some flowers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Little flowers,
Yeah, it was interesting because we were sitting in a gathering of my spiritual mom and her family for Mother's Day. And she had an interesting comment that actually kind of surprised me. She's like, that she had a hard time when she first saw the ring that I wear, which I now describe when people say, "Oh, that's so beautiful." And I describe, it's generational wealth, which, which actually is it's a great way to like spark that conversation, especially if the person looks like me. Sometimes white people don't have that conversation about generational wealth. It's kind of in our lexicon, and, or at least the people that I hang around, wouldn't necessarily think about it that way. So that's become my retort. But she actually mentioned something about how when she first saw the ring, she had a judgment about it, and had a judgment about who I was based on the ring. And, it was a little hard to hear, actually, because that's been something that I've dealt with my whole life. People judging me, putting me in a box, which is how she described it. She said, I wanted to put you in a box that I ascribed to people who would have a ring like that. And she said, and I've known you for years and I love you to death. And yet I still wanted to put you in that box. So
real. Yeah.
So it was interesting.
I mean, because you can have a ring like that and behave in a different type of way, right? And with your generational wealth, it'd be like, I know what's best for you. Because I have this generational wealth, have some, I don't know, upper hand in some way, shape, or form. And financially, yes. But then you don't ever engage. I haven't had an experience of you engaging the space in that way. So
Yeah. Well, and I think you reflected that, if I remember correctly, that it was, okay, so a couple of things happened. You reflected that you felt like me wearing the ring would indicate maybe to people that I fit in a certain category, but then they find out how I really move through space and they go, "Oh, that's different." So it becomes an opportunity to break open those stereotypes and maybe challenge where people have been thinking that I might fit in one place and not fit in another. And then I was reminded of when I lived in Charleston, how I used to I had buttons all the time. I had a Black Lives Matter button. I had a white silences violence button. And I would wear these buttons all the time because normally when I walked into a space that was predominantly white, which are most of the spaces in Charleston that I was running in, that they would automatically think I believed the way they did in their, racist, stereotypical, that kind of way. And so I wore the buttons to purposely challenge that.
yeah.
And the way you described the ring, it's like now the ring is doing the work that the button wasn't. And so, and it may give me an opportunity to talk to people who wouldn't normally give me the time of day because they see the ring and they go, "Oh, she's one of my people." And then I can have that conversation. I'm always looking for ways. That's why I have, the Palestinian flags on my fingernails, because people see them and they go, "Oh, I love your fingernails." And I say, "Oh, thank you. Do you know what it is?" And then they say, "Oh, actually, no." And then I say, "Well, it's a Palestinian flag." And then we get to have that conversation. So that has been an evolution of mine since my awakening, is like, what can I utilize to break that box that people will put me in, whether it's whiteness, whether it's, the privilege, or she must be racist, she thinks like us, white heritage, as we talked about in another episode, all of those things. And it's like, no, I'm going to be different. I used to have a sticker on the back of my car that said "resist." I think I've told you this story before. And a white guy was driving this was in Charleston. He was driving a black truck that had like gun stickers on the back of it. So we know what time it is. And he and I have been kind of jockeying with each other in the Charleston traffic, which you have now.
I know.
Added quite a bit. And sometimes he was behind me and sometimes he was in front of me. And then at one point he kind of motioned like he wanted me to roll my window down. So I rolled my window down and he said, "What are we resisting?" And I said, "White supremacy." And his whole face just fell because he did not expect that to be my
resisted.
He did not expect that to be my answer. He went, "Oh."
Right.
And then the light changed and I took off, and so so I always love those opportunities.
He didn't lift his hand in the air and say, "I'm which is this? I'm which is this?"
No, he didn't. He just went, "Oh." And then I just toodled
The
off.
shocker.
Yeah. So, well, to the point of you finding out that I was a biker chick, I actually have a picture to share on the stage.
Yeah,
if you want to.
Let's let the people know. Let the people know that watch this.
So this is
So
me.
do you see what I'm saying? You're a little cut off on the top, though.
Yeah, it is cut off. Sorry, I can't control that part.
Harley.
That is me. Yeah, in my biker bitch persona. And that was the last bike that I owned. And that was the Harley Deluxe. And so I enjoyed riding for sure. But yeah.
So when you were in this iteration of your life, what was your level of awareness of non-white culture, identity, and all of that kind of stuff? Like, where were you in your understanding? So would you have been that person that I might not have wanted to like have any conversation with in the way that I was thinking during that iteration of your life?
Well, you asked me two different questions. So the first question was, how aware was I of other cultures? And I didn't have a lot of awareness. This is pre-awakening that I was riding bikes more often. So, but I didn't, the spaces that, well, the bike culture is a little different, especially down in South Carolina. There are, we talked about this, that there's Harley, and we're not far, Charleston's not far from Myrtle Beach, and there's a Harley bike week, and there's they call it the Black Bike Week, where it's more crotch rockets and that kind of thing. And But there were quite a few Black people that would ride Harleys. So I would see them in spaces. It was kind of like the Great Equalizer, that it would still be predominantly white. I'm not suggesting that it was, half and half, but there were people that were, and as long as you were in the bike culture, I never heard anybody dropping the N word or being anything like that in those circles, because there was just this understanding. If you rode a Harley, you were part of the group.
That was the connection. That was the tribe. The tribe was the Harley driving tribe.
The Harley riding was the great connection. So now, was there a different attitude towards the folks that would show up for Black Bike Week in Myrtle Beach, riding the crotch rockets and the speed racers and those kinds of things? Yes, you were not riding a Harley. You were not part of a Harley crew. So there was a very different mindset. I didn't find myself in those circles a lot, so I didn't see a lot of that difference, but I know the energy was different because there was a lot of conversation in the bike community, especially when they tried to stop, when Myrtle Beach tried to say, no, we're not doing Black Bike Week anymore. And actually the Harley riders in a lot of ways came to their defense and said, no, if you're going to do a Harley Bike Week, you need to do a Black Bike Week. And I think they didn't do it 1 year, and then they got a lot of blowback because the Harley riders said, we won't come at all, because they made a lot of money off the Harley Bike Weeks. And so the Harley riders said, we won't come at all if you're going to cancel the Black Bike Week. So there was a solidarity there that's, because the common denominator was the bike community and the bike culture. Sorry, go ahead.
So we're talking about South Carolina. So was it still, even though you wear Harleys, or like if we're talking about Myrtle Beach and Black Bike Week, that the white folks, they would be like, yeah, they can come and have it. But what if it was those bikers wanted to actually could join together and have a bike week together? Or was it, no, we support them coming down on their week and we have our week, and everybody keeps to their own, and everybody's happy type of situation? Okay, because that's a different conversation than conversation of, we're having our week, we're riding our Harleys, and the brothers can come and they can ride their crotch rockets, and we just all gonna do it together. That's a different conversation than saying we support them having their week over there and we having our week over here, and as long as everybody stay in their place, everybody gonna be happy. Yeah, that's a different conversation.
You're right. It is. And to that point, I did hear, because there would be some Black bikers that ride in the crotch rockets and stuff that would show up during Harley Week, and there would be grumbles of, this isn't your week, you need to come next week. I probably, in my then brain, would have thought that it was just about the difference in the bikes and the difference in the way the bikes rode, because people ride a group of Harleys differently than they ride crotch rockets. Crotch rockets tend to weave in and out, and that it can get a little crazy. Some Harley riders can do that too, but it is, I would have said back then, yeah, I know, I'm qualifying. This was my blinders on. This is my blinders on brain. I know, I get it. I hear the silliness of that comment, but if you would ask me back then, I would have said that it was about the difference in the bikes and the difference in the way that people rode, and that's how I was taught to think. So I mean,
but let's unpack that. Like, that's what we need to be unpacking. It's like we're having this conversation. It's like the reality of the situation is that there is a conversation in your head that says this is a difference because they ride their motorcycles differently. That's like that's an excuse to like come up with the fact that you're different. But here and of the same, I'm gonna hold accountability and responsibility, is that I open this conversation with you. I have a narrative storytelling in my mind about what a white, blonde-haired, chap-wearing biker chick is from the South. So but we're having this conversation so that we know each other beyond those narratives that we're telling ourselves in our mind. That is what matters. And that is like, if we're talking about what was one of the things that was the most important about going to South Carolina, is that those realities are amplified.
Yes.
And because they're amplified, you can either choose to be in the delusion, and then that speaks to a certain reality of the way that you're existing in the world. And I'm choosing my language very nicely right now, as you can see. And
Bless
then,
your heart.
or you could be, bless my heart, or you could be in the amplification of it and like sit in it and say, I am recognizing this difference. I am recognizing that I, as a Black woman, exist here as a shadow soul, and that doesn't feel okay. And y'all need to know that don't feel all right to me, and like address it head on and see how people, and hence me engaging a whole bunch of people. Like, I am here. And so that's what I wanted to get to in this conversation. I'm glad that we've come full circle. I love how time is circular, but that is it. My engagement, I am naturally like that, but I also felt the need to be more present there because I felt like a shadow soul. So you're going to hear me do a lot more hellos to people who, I see that person really won't respond to me. Ain't that about a beat? Okay, hello. Oh, look at these nice young people. This person will respond to me. This person really literally acted like I did not say hello in their face existing. And that is the reality of what the US says and speaks to all non-white bodies. You have to find out where it is that you're going to be engaged. And if you're a person that has had a wealth of experience, then it's easier for you. Well, no, it's easier for you to navigate those spaces. It's not an easy space to navigate. So let me make the difference. It's easier for you to navigate the space.
Ding. Yeah.
No, it's not an easy space.
It's not easy to navigate. Yeah.
But you will do it because you have to do it. I'm doing it because I want the next visitor who comes there and can't get in touch with the fact that I feel like a shadow soul to maybe feel less uncomfortable by the way somebody engages them, because they will have had a Black woman that's just one. I said to you when I talked to those kids, a seed was planted that a Black woman out of nowhere is going to step outside of what we're used to Black people to be in positionality about here. And she actually said something to me. You know what I mean? So like, that is why I also was like, hello, how? Oh, look at that beautiful child. And I know, or, oh, thank you for that. And I saw that people's reaction, like, oh, she's talking
spoke to me.
However, they're responding to it. They were like, this person actually spoke to me, and it wasn't aggressive. It was just a normal human speaking to it. And I appreciate the shock value of that in those moments, because it was just like, look, come on.
They didn't know what to do with it. Yeah.
They didn't know what to do with it. It's like, yo, like, for real, you need to be thinking about the fact that, and now see, now there's a little hard New Yorker girl that comes out and be like, yo, y'all need to get yourself together a little bit, son.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't make any sense.
Well, and I want to acknowledge, I've got lots of things swirling around in my head based on what you just said, but I want to acknowledge that, I don't remember if it was last episode or this one, but I was talking about how I didn't know how to engage people. I that grew up in the middle of nowhere, was never modeled for me to let's go let's go welcome our neighbors to the new neighborhood. That never happened. So I am not good at it. I don't have well-developed skills of engaging people that I live around. And I want to acknowledge that in that scenario, when we're in a place like Charleston, that I don't have to engage people because I naturally am accepted. So I don't have to be seen. I don't have to bully, I don't have to get my way in there and go, you do see me. I want to make sure that you see me. I don't have to do any of that. In fact, in other ways, to what I spoke to earlier, I focus on outwardly wearing, I'm always wearing t-shirts that have a saying on it that gets people thinking, because I know people are going to see me and I want them to get something from seeing me other than just there's another white woman that whatever. Like I have a t-shirt that says people over profit. And I was in the bathroom driving home on Sunday from North Carolina, and a woman stopped me and she's like, I love your t-shirt. And so those are the opportunities that I try to create by the things that I wear usually when I'm in public. But I guess I'm acknowledging that I'm doing that intentionally, not because I want to be seen, because I won't be seen otherwise, but because when I'm seen, I want there to be a message that they wouldn't otherwise get. So I feel like there's that intentionality behind how I move, similarly to your intentionality, but it's about being a shadow soul or not versus being categorized as something or not. If that, I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but that's what was coming up for me.
No, it does resonate. It absolutely do. It does. And then now if we're talking about gender, this is a really very interesting, varied perspective because of gender. So but the fact that we're both women, identified as women, we also exist in a space where we have to make ourselves present in some way.
Yeah.
I'm choosing it with an engagement of acknowledging the humanity. You're doing it with, I am letting you know I am here in my white womanness, but I am a different white woman than what your brain might be thinking.
And what you're going to think I am. Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, I'm a Black woman too. And you are going to acknowledge that you can be in community with me. And I'm not that weird. I mean, I'm different, but I'm not, it's not that weird to be in a conversation with me, or for me to acknowledge that your kid has a cute outfit on, or that I like your dress, or whatever the case may be, because those are things that I naturally do as also. And I want you to acknowledge that. And recognize it.
Yeah.
I keep on cutting off my mic because there's young people around now.
I hear them playing. That's awesome.
That's a beautiful thing that we know community is happening. Mm-hmm.
To your point about the gender piece, I would be so curious if we had a white man and a Black man maybe in this dialogue to say, because I'm remembering something that my husband was reflecting on. I think I shared this with you when we went to Amsterdam. You know, he, even in the airport and then on the streets of Amsterdam, when he would see another Black person, he would do the nod. And it happened in the airport, and then it happened on the streets. And he said,
"You can't."
Oh, I gotta see what the nod is.
You're gonna have to do your explanations about what the nod is, because we have people listening from other places.
Okay, well, just for the record, you asked me for the explanations.
And I want a white person to explain what the nod is. So this is funny, y'all. So we're gonna see.
So this is how it was explained to me. Let me just say that this is how it was explained to me. I've had it explained to me twice, actually. From a Black woman that I knew in Charleston, I asked her one time, because Black people are walking along the streets and stuff. And I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I would see people walking to and from, because we have horrible public transportation. So people walk a lot. And I would see a Black person driving in a car would pass by this person walking along the road, and they would always wave like they know each other. And so I was in this dialogue with a Black woman that I knew in Charleston. And I asked her, I said, okay, stupid white woman question time. And she said, okay, come on, bring it. And I said, do you literally know each other? I mean, because everybody has this familiarity with each other. I know it sounds stupid coming out of my mouth now. And she's like, no. But what we know, or what we resonate with or connect with, is each other's lived experience. And she's the one that told me that when a Black person enters a restaurant, the first thing they do is scan the restaurant and find the other Black people, and they do the nod. So this is to the description. This is what I was told. They do the nod to each other, which is to say, according to her, I see you. If shit starts going down, I'm headed toward you. We got each other's backs, because 9 times out of 10, there may be the one of two that might be in that restaurant. And so does that sound like, is that a full explanation? That's what I was told. So,
no, I appreciate it. Yes, it's definitely an acknowledgement of shared humanity, a shared lived experience, especially U.S. Black culture experience. You can be from any place else, and other people that listen to us from the continent of Africa or wherever, you can attest to the fact that there is community and there's family, because we know the shared lived experience that we've had. And so there is an acknowledgement of that. I love the safety piece. I hadn't thought about the safety piece, because I don't know, I might not have been aware of it in that way, to be thinking of it as identifying that the other people who understand my shared live experience would be the place of safety if something to pop off. Because naturally and organically, when things do pop off, you do look for your light people, because you know that you're going to be in responsiveness in the same way. So I do really appreciate that contextualization of the nod. But continue with the conversation that your husband was having about the nod in Europe and what that has.
Yeah. So we were in the airport, and I thank you for that qualification of the U.S. Black person's experience, because that is going to be different, right? And illustrated by this story. So we're in the airport in Amsterdam, and he, just walking to baggage claim or something. And I didn't even track this when it was happening. He told me later he saw a Black person in the airport, and he did the nod, and the person did not respond. There was no acknowledgement. There was no, flat affect, no indicator that they understood what the nod was about. And he thought, well, that's interesting. And then it happened again when we were walking along Amsterdam, and he saw a Black person and he did the nod, and there was no response to it. And his reflection on that was, I'm actually in a place where Black people don't have to nod at each other to know who's safe and who's not. And how amazing is that, to be out of the U.S. experience where Black people can just be on the streets and not be looking for the people that look like them for a sense of safety if something pops off, as you just said. And that really struck him. I mean, we talked about it a few times after we got back, and he even mentioned it to another friend of his who's a Black man who didn't get, when he was telling him about it, the other person didn't understand what he was saying. He had to explain. It's like, no, when you're not on U.S. soil, you don't have to identify who the safe people are as much. I mean, I know I'm painting with a very broad brush, but this was the experience that
different type of anti-Blackness.
Right.
That exists all across the globe. So let's not. Right. We're not saying that. It's
we're not saying that. Yeah. But it was interesting that that's what resonated with him. And then, so that was, I don't remember how I got into that story, quite honestly.
Because we were talking about like the cultural differences and contextualizing the nod and the need for that in U.S. territory because of U.S. racism that we are seeing experience very prevalent in this moment in particular right now with the U.S. racism, with ICE existing, the way that they're going into communities, the way that they're targeting folks. I'm not hearing so much about Black identified folks being targeted as I am feeling about Spanish and folks that are being put into like those type of migrant communities that exist now in the U.S. appropriately.
There have been some folks that have gotten swept up in it, but
that's Black folks and Black bodies are being surveilled and swept up in a different way. That's less ICE. That's always been our law enforcement. So the law enforcement is continuing to do what it does, and now ICE.
But I have heard of people getting swept up in ICE in ICE raids too. Yeah. So, but I hear you that the majority of where ICE is going after is mostly
for ICE.
Yeah. So
that doesn't mean that law enforcement is not existing and doing what law enforcement does on Black and brown bodies.
They are still doing all
that distinction is still very clearly and it's much more prevalent in the U.S. and it's less vetted before people are given the opportunity to have that power and position in the U.S. So that means that more people are being included onto ICE forces and into law enforcement who don't have the same type of educational background about criminology, who don't have the same type of psychological test levels that they're supposed to, but they're getting these badges and getting this position to go round up people in the U.S. So it really is a very unnerving time for folks that are not considered to be the folks that should be that they want to be placing in power again,
including a $55,000 signing bonus for people who are not trained.
You're getting paid, right? You're getting paid to not be qualified.
55,000. I've heard some signing up, just signing your name on the dotted line. You get a $55,000. Yeah. So we should start to deep dive and interrogate, like on our next episode, and interrogate some whiteness a little bit more as we're talking about positions of power and how people are thinking about how whiteness is impacting all of us, and how we then come to our conversation about, are we celebrating that? Are we celebrating
this in our 250th anniversary of the United States.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad to know that we were both expanded and enriched by our trip to Charleston. I think there are probably going to be ways that maybe we haven't even identified for time to come.
For time to come.
Yeah.
There it is. Time to come. All right. Let it be known.
All right. Bye, my friends.
Why do I give a fuck?
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, as you move throughout your day, continue to ask yourself,
Why do I give a
Why Do I Give a Fuck is produced in collaboration with Johanna and Diane. Music by Norwegian musician Water. See you next time.